so clunky with all the audio, vision, and miking and everything. It's not very slick, but it's filling up. So everyone tweeted the right location anyway. Quick last drink, dry. Okay. Time to see if the microphone works. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our mobile education session. My name is Adrian Godfrey. I'm Director of Mobile Education at the GSMA. The GSMA believe that mobile education is approaching a tipping point. As mobile devices proliferate and young people globally become fluent with ICTs broadly and integrate them with every aspect of their life, it's easy to believe that a technology so pervasive could make a difference in education. However, in order for pilots to give rise to sustainable commercial solutions, we understand that there are complex discussions that have to take place. Conversations ranging from policy to assessment. Questions have to be asked, debates have to be had, and answers have to be found. This session will look at the potential of mobile across the entire education spectrum. And with the help of experts, panels from education and from the mobile industry, we will attempt to understand the demand for mobile learning, its potential for improving learner outcomes, and discuss the critical ingredients for successful commercial solutions. The question we have asked the panel to consider is, if mobile education is the answer, what is the question? I'd like to invite our first speaker to set the scene for us. Professor Tim Unwin is General Secretary of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organisation, a passionate leader in the field of ICT for development. He is UNESCO Chair in ICT for D and Emeritus Professor of Geography at Royal Holloway University, London. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Tim Unwin.
Thanks very much, Adrian. It's a great privilege to be here. We were told not to have slides, but if there is the backdrop image for what I want to talk about, if that could come on, do I just hit the button?
Part of my job, I think. If you can just close that down for a second.
That's technology.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Oh, Tim.
Bring your own.
If education is the answer, what is the question? Less than 2 weeks ago, I was in northern Tanzania. Walking across the dry savannah, I entered the thorned enclosure of a boma, or small village. I was welcomed by the Maasai chief's son, who engaged me in conversation. I, as I'm sure many of you, remembered seeing striking images in the international media around 2007 of Maasai warriors, resplendent in their red, lion-proof robes, holding mobile phones to their ears. And knowing that I was due to speak a world away here today, I slowly began to explore the question of mobile telephony in education. I should not have done so. The conversation left me embarrassed and humbled. As my friends used their smartphones to take photos, I asked, "Does anyone in the village have a mobile phone?" "No," he said in his excellent English. One of my friends asked, "Would a mobile phone not be useful to call your friends in other villages?" "Why?" he responded. "I can walk 2 or 3 hours to see them." And I admired his life. Earlier, he had shown me the small hut where young children were learning the alphabet and counting in English. So, very gently, I sought to explore the benefits of mobile education and mobile learning. But if you had a smartphone, couldn't you use it to get learning resources for your children? He looked bemused. My question meant little to him. He had asked for chalk and books. I changed the subject. Of course, many Maasai, and indeed poor people in rural areas across Africa, do indeed use mobile phones for a huge range of purposes. But this brief conversation re-emphasized many of the challenges of mobile education and highlights the crucial importance of this question. If education is the answer, what is the question? So let me provoke you, let me tease out 4 of these questions in my opening comments. If education is the answer, what is the question? How do we increase our traffic? To me, this is one of the most important questions, all too often asked behind the closed doors of the luxurious offices of mobile operators in cities, that is answered by the phrase M-learning. How do we increase our data traffic? It is nothing to do with education or learning. There's far more data capacity in the world than we currently use. The arrival of the submarine cables across Africa in recent years has transformed connectivity, but much remains unused. Mobile networks are expanding, but again, there is not yet sufficient demand for their use. Hence, it is crucial for operators to encourage the development of more services if they're to generate the profits that they seek. Mobile banking has been one such successful service. Now, mobile health services and mobile learning are seen as important means of moving beyond the simple data requirements of social media apps, however fun Facebook is. If education is the answer, what is the question? How can we gain external funding from governments and donors so that we can extend our networks? The costs of putting networks into low-density rural areas far from the fibre backbones of most countries greatly outweigh the likely returns, at least in the short term. It is uneconomic. In many poorer countries of the world, operators have been able to gain lucrative revenue opportunities from the relatively small, dense urban areas, and have been able to circumvent requirements to provide universal coverage to benefit all citizens. Hence, operators are always seeking to find sources of co-financing that can help them extend their networks into marginal areas. Where they have to pay taxes into universal service or access funds, they want to share back in extending networks. Of course they do. They need a handle, though, to persuade governments and indeed bilateral and multilateral donors to provide resources to enable them to extend their infrastructure. How better than to persuade them that by so doing they will enable all citizens to benefit from the opportunities that education has to offer. If you, donors or governments, if you will help fund the networks, you can then use them to ensure that every citizen has access to M-Health, M-Education, M-Gov. This makes real sense. And with the drive to deliver the Millennium Development Goals, the thirst by the international donor community to ensure that their targets are reached, and the aspiration of enlightened governments to really deliver services of value to their citizens, M-Education really is the answer. If education is the answer, what is the question? What's the best market opportunity for our company? Education is no longer, surely, of value for its own sake. It is merely a commodity to be bought and sold. It is a vibrant market. So there are considerable profits to be made by everyone in the education industry. The company could be an app developer, eager to find the killer education app. It could be a publisher, eager to extend its sales. It could be a teaching company. They used to be known as schools, eager to grow the market for the services offered by their teachers. Academics in research companies, sometimes still known as universities, are eager to compete to gain prestigious research grants, to study or perhaps usually to prove the potential of education and fuel this thriving industry. The explosion of mobile telephony and the expectation that it will soon be ubiquitous opens up phenomenal possibilities for companies to extend the reach of their education solutions. We truly can achieve education for all if only we can ensure that the poorest people can afford a new smartphone and we can have universal network coverage. And that's the point, ladies and gentlemen. It is education, learning forever for all. Think about it. Unlike health, which is mainly for people who are ill, learning is something that everyone must do. It's institutionalized in our education systems, and now we're all encouraged to partake in lifelong learning. Education, unlike health or anything else, is 24/7, by 365, by 80 or so, depending how many years you live. The magic multiplier for education is 6,384,000 times the number of people in the world. This is a market indeed. If education is the answer, what really is the question? How can we reach the most marginalized in our societies and give them the highest possible quality of learning? I guess that's the question you expected me to begin with. Of course, M-Learning provides a wealth of opportunity for the enlightened, the altruists, those who care about reducing inequalities that digital technologies otherwise enhance. And hopefully some governments and civil society organizations committed to providing quality learning opportunities for the poorest and the most marginalized in our societies, those living in isolated rural areas, street children, people with disabilities. The ubiquity of networks and devices, their mobility, anywhere, anytime, and their simplicity of use, all make mobile devices, be they phones, tablets, laptops, wonderful platforms for learning. Yes, but we still need to work harder to find out what works best. We still need high quality, locally produced content. And above all, we still need teachers trained in ways of using this raft of technology in the best interests of pupils. Perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, mobile devices may even one day free us completely from what many people see as being the shackles of an outmoded school and education system. Friends and colleagues, as I hope these 4 questions have illustrated, everybody has an interest in education. We must therefore work together collaboratively in well-crafted partnerships to help those who asked those 4 questions all achieve the benefits in learning and education that this phenomenal technology can provide. But let us not pretend that it is only about education. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Provocative as ever, which is great. Expect nothing less. Our second speaker today really looks at more the Northern Hemisphere's approach to some of this technology. I'm going to bring up to the stage Carlos Suero Marquez. He's local. He started his career development in the education sector as a mathematics and physics teacher. He has worked in the software industry as a consultant in knowledge management, and 5 years ago returned to education as a school principal. Amongst his achievements, he succeeded in implementing the most significant one-to-one iPad deployment in Spain. So please welcome Carlos Suero Marquez. I'll do this for you now.
Yeah.
How's that? You good?
Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I thought I was provocative, but I think I will not reach. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to explain the project we have rolled out in the school today. I'm just, I think the objective is that we'll have a conversation later on with some people here from the publishing sector and the IT sector. So I will try to draw to give you a flavor of just an idea okay, an idea of what do we need from you. Okay, this is an opportunity. So to do it, I'm just going to explain a really local issue. I'm going to try to explain what is the real problem in our schools right now, here in Catalonia and Spain, okay? Here, you can see, let me introduce you an imaginary student. His name is Joan, okay? During summer, Joan looks happy, handsome, he explains things, he has friends, he's autonomous, and he looks fully competent for life. On winter, where school starts, he's sad, he looks nervous all the time, he doesn't explain anything, he's irritable, he hates homework, and he doesn't get good grades at school, okay? What's happening here? I think all of you has one Joan in your life, or know one Joan in your life, okay? I think in school they're forcing him to play a game he cannot win. And I have to tell you one relevant detail regarding Joan. He likes learning things. He likes it. In fact, he learns, but he's fully open to their own interests. On the other hand, we have another imaginary student called Magali. Magali is also happier in summer than in winter, but more or less he's succeeding at school. Her strategy in school is to follow two basic rules. Be quiet and do what they tell you to do. If you do this, more or less, you keep going. She's learning things, but she gets bored at class. And she also hates homework, but well, he gets always done. The homework is always done. And her parents are not sure that her success in school will imply any success in real life. Okay? So I think it's obvious we have a real problem in our schools. I mean, and it seems that it's obvious that we need to change our model. And I think, obviously, the learning, the mobility, the IT will make it for sure during the following years. Okay. The point is that we have two different strategies here. One strategy, I think, it's completely realistic. I mean, we could say, okay, we can have more teachers like Rafe Esquith. I mean, you know him. This is the author of the bestsellers, Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire, whatever. But I think this is not realistic. In Catalonia, we have 80,000 teachers. 80,000 teachers. So it seems difficult to have or to find or to select 80,000 Rafe Esquith. This is completely impossible. So, well, I'm being a little agitator coming to one of the most modern congresses all over the world and showing a picture of an old school back in the years 20 of last century. But this picture tells me a story about a school built around a real community, okay, where the participation to contribute towards these communities is compulsory. These other pictures shows me a school where the barriers of the classroom are broken, and well, that school is the home of the students. They come there and they use the school to learn. A school which is not a hostile environment for our kids. So that's a vision. I think we will all of us will be agree about this thing. So at this point, I'm going to try stop being inspirational, or trying to be inspirational. I will make a break and I will start being a bit technical, okay? I've said we have a real story to explain. I mean, we have rolled out a big deployment of iPads at school. Maybe we have a chance to talk about it later during the debate, okay? But today I have a great opportunity. I have you guys, which come from the educational and the publishing sector. So I will tell you what I think we need really from you, and that's it. And what we need, it's completely out of scope of our schools. I mean, we cannot do it. We need an industry. Your work, your products will be an amazing lever for the learning of our kids. This is for sure. So let's go with that. Yesterday I was drawing a schema, and here comes the idea. And the idea, it's not disruptive. It's just, I think it's common sense. In this exercise, what I did is I was trying to think which are the typical activities a teacher does in classroom today, in a real classroom with real kids. And I have make these two axes. Okay, there's one activities which are commodity activities, and activities which have added value. And some activities are done in an analogical paradigm, and other ones are done in a more digital paradigm. Okay, which are these activities? For instance, we have correction. We are in the Congress. We have lots of devices, amazing things. Okay, but teachers still correct lots of things. That's happening right now in all schools all over the world. And that has to be done. That has to be done. That has to be done, okay? Correction is a really real commodity action. I mean, you don't need to be an amazing teacher to correct something. And today, this is done more or less analogically. I mean, the magic tool to correct is a red pen. Well, okay, we have iPads, some of them receive the PDF of the students, and we make marks. Okay, but this is an analogical process today. Teachers today are doing dictations. This is necessary to learn writing. I mean, you go there, you dictate something, students correct, write it, and you correct it later. Dictation is not as commodity as correction, but it's also a commodity action, for sure, for sure. Dictation, you have one thing. Imagine you are dictating the same text to 30, 15, 35, depending on the country, kids. So you are not personalizing things. And well, more or less, if you're talking about foreign languages, yes, you use digital tools to make the dictation, but I think it's pretty analogical. We make repetitive calculus. I mean, I'm a mathematics teacher. I think beyond mathematics, there's a lot of creativity, and we need to explain mathematics from others' point of view, whatever. But there's some repetitive calculus that has to be done. This is a commodity activity for the teacher, okay? Teachers also make some expositions. Today, I think in our world, in our country, exposition are not the primary strategy to teach, but sometimes we need to talk 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever. And this is a more added value activity than the others, okay? And we are using some digital methods to do it. Teachers, I think this is the role, the core part of their job. They need to design activities and prioritize and order these activities, okay? We also have to individual coach, be with our kids, talk with them, etc. Group guidance, we put an activity and we are just there telling, helping the kids what they are supposed to do, which is the correct path, whatever. Activity feedback, okay, I think this is a really added value, what things we see are bad for the kids, etc. And motivation. So that's just a game, okay? I just try to list some of the things real teacher does today. And what is happening right now is that we are doing something really, really strange. We are using technology for the activities which are more added value. But we are jumping a step. We are jumping a step, okay? And to motivate, to give added value, to give feedback to our students, we need something, which is time. I assume we will have more money, and that will happen in Spain. Money implying resources, hours of teachers, that will not happen. So we have the hours we have. And I insist, to motivate, to give feedback, teachers need time. Where can we find this time? I mean, the answer is really simple. They're spending lots and lots of time in commodity activities. And I think we're focusing, the industry is focusing a lot in the real added value activities, but I think they are forgetting which are commodity activities. So I think the step before, the step in the middle of this rupturist model, whatever, is we do not have real commodity software that a kid in our schools, they stay there for 8 hours, 6 hours a day. Imagine just, we can make an hypothesis that at least 2 hours a day, our kids need to be exercising, doing work, working autonomous, whatever, no? For this work, they don't need a teacher, and all these hours can be put in value, okay? So what do we need? We need tools, to make dictations, to exercise, or whatever, and tools which they exist currently, but they are really scattered. They are not integrated. They are not integrated with our ERPs. They don't give feedback to the teachers. So I know that a lot of you are developing things like that. But I think there is no holistic approach regarding how to help teachers in what is a commodity activity in our schools. And I think this could be a great strategy. We need to help our teachers doing just what is really easy to do. And I think we are in a point regarding artificial intelligence technology. We have the devices, we have the bandwidth. We are in a point which this is possible, and we could give teachers more time to make the actions which represent added value. So that's my point of view, and I think this is an idea just to start talking and have a good fun debating on each other. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Wonderful. More provocation from a different angle, which is always welcome. Could I ask my first panel to come up and join me, please? I have a panel from education initially to continue this discussion. If you'd like to come up round, guys, there's a slope there. Anyway, if Leslie comes here next to me. Yeah. I'll change the slides. Thank you very much, panel, for joining me. If I could just ask you from right to left to introduce yourselves, let us know your name, who you work for, and your role within the organisation. We'll start with you, Leslie.
Great. I'm Leslie Connery, and for many years worked for an organization, an NGO, called ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. So that's where most of my career has been. But recently have moved to working with a partnership organization called Collaborative Impact. And with Collaborative Impact, I'm the partner that coordinates a partnership called Matuto Literacy for Life.
I'm Rupert Daniels. I'm the Global Marketing Director for Cambridge University Press. We're the oldest publishing company in the world, founded by Henry VIII. And that's my job. I've been working for Cambridge for about a year now.
Is that right? Henry VIII? Wow, that's cool. I'm Henry, not the 8th. I'm Henry Warren. I'm the Director of Learning for the Vocational Businesses within Pearson. What that really means is I lead on both the technology and the pedagogy for our vocational businesses. I'm a former geek, really, I suppose, and an entrepreneur, but I'm now working within a large corporate.
I'm Antti Karilainen, and I work for the British Council. We are the UK's cultural relations organisation, and one of our key offers in the cultural relations field is English language. And my job title there is Director Partnerships Europe.
Well, you can start.
And we know who he is. Fantastic. There's a real interesting mix of panelists. We have two panels today, and I encourage you to take this conversation outside after the session and see if they really know their subject. So panel, Leslie, if I could start with you. In your experience, what role can ICTs and specifically mobile technology play in education transformation?
That's a great question. Oh, it is up.
It is.
I'd like to start by saying that for a long time, the role that ICT could play, we've talked about it, thought about it, dreamed about it, and it's been largely unrealized. It just hasn't happened. But I really think, based on what I've been seeing here, what I've been hearing, and what I know elsewhere, that we're at a place where ICT has the power and the potential to be the disruptive innovation that will be a game changer in education. And I say that based on a career working in this field, and things are different and they've changed now. So with my old hat on at ISTE, we worked with the higher end of the education spectrum, and I could give all kinds of examples of what might ICT look like to transform education at that end. But instead, for today, I'd like to give an example of what it might look like from the other end, from the people who are underserved, the people that Professor Unwin was talking about in terms of the people who don't have basic literacy skills. And I asked for permission to put a slide up there just so that I could rattle off a bunch of numbers and let you have something to look at so that you could see those numbers. Because I loved what Tim said at the beginning. I think that was incredibly provocative and got us thinking. I do also believe that education, it is more than a market, although it's a massive market. It's also about basic rights, and it's about access to health care. If you can't read, if you're illiterate, you don't have access to health care. It's a political issue, it's an economic issue, it's a safety issue. I mean, it's lots of different things. And there are 774 million functionally illiterate adults on this planet. 1 in every 4 adults is functionally illiterate, which means they don't have access to those basic rights, those basic health care issues. There's a shortage of primary school teachers. That's great that in that Maasai school there was a teacher and able to teach, but there's a shortage of, depending on who you read, between 1.6 and 15 million primary school teachers. So there aren't enough teachers out there. And we know that when people learn to read, they learn to read best in their mother tongue. Research proves it out. There's 7,000 languages around the globe, and many of them are spoken by less than 100,000 people. So there's a huge issue. And one more little fact, if you will. UNESCO, with Education for All and the Millennial Goals, has been working on addressing the literacy issue for a long time. Lots of really great partnerships and people doing a lot of good work, and we've barely put a dent in it. We've improved by 1% the number of illiterate people across the globe. So to answer the question, how can ICT be a game changer? When you've got that kind of a problem, that's a systemic problem that is so hard to solve, essentially intractable, you need something that absolutely is totally disruptive and that has us turn things on its head. And that's where I believe that ICT and mobile devices in particular, mobile devices because now we're talking one-to-one computing, we're talking lower cost devices that are actually can be affordable in the developing world, and then also talking about that connectivity. We can do things and reach people in ways that never before were possible. And one specific example, the partnership that I'm working with, Matuto Literacy for Life, we're prototyping and actually have some pilots working in Lesotho and other places around the world to create reading material on a device that a person can read that actually, it's not just content creation, it's content consumption and creation. So there are people who have programs where you can read different things on your computer or on your mobile device, but we're actually helping people locally, working with communities to write local stories in mother tongue. Because when we talk to our colleagues, they're saying that one of the biggest issues is there's not enough reading materials. In fact, I think I also put up on the slides, in order to have enough paper books, which is the traditional way to teach reading, to teach literacy, it's like 74 billion books is the estimate of what it would take to bring the people from illiteracy to basic literacy. So think about what you can do if you've got a library in your hand, not only of an unlimited number of books, but that can be in your mother tongue, so a person can learn to read. And think about a device, an app, where it can actually break down the words and have you hear the word by word. It could read a story to you, collect the analytics so that a person knows the next best book for them to read for their reading level. So we were asked to keep it really short. I'm going to stop at that. But I think that sample alone is an idea of a game changer that just was not possible before, was undreamable before, and now it's something that actually can be a reality.
Thank you, Alison. Beautifully illustrated by the slide and the certain magnitude of the issue which you're facing. Thank you very much. Rupert, you work for a large publisher, a very old publisher. Could I ask you what demand you're seeing from your customer base for digital content and services, and how is Cambridge University Press responding?
Well, yeah, I mean, I introduced Cambridge University Press by saying we're the world's oldest publisher, but actually, I think in a way we're almost like the world's oldest startup, because what we're having to do is address the demand which we're facing from teachers, from education professionals, and indeed from students themselves. And I think that that's really where the interesting thing is. We did a bit of work recently, and over 50% of all the courses, materials, resources we sell have some kind of digital component. Now, we were talking actually, Tim and I, about the beauty of analog. You know, books are still a driver. So everywhere I go, teachers are still asking for physical printed materials, DVDs, CDs. But actually what they're doing now is they're augmenting those with digital mobile learning materials. And these are things which you can even think about, you know, the flipped classroom, This helps to create things like adaptive learning. We're looking at how you can create individualized and personalized pathways within the classroom. So this is where it's very interesting from the example that Carlos was talking about earlier, that teachers want to do these kind of things in the classroom, but I think there's a bit of a gap at the moment between the resources which are being produced from major publishers, app creators, etc., and actually what teachers want and need in the classroom. So part of my role, I came into the company about a year ago to look at how we can solve this problem. And a lot of this is research, it's talking, it's understanding what teachers actually want. So a very good example, one of our biggest clients is a university in Turkey. And we provide the whole English language teaching syllabus for them. They're the biggest university, the second biggest university in the world. So they have over 5 million students, all of whom have to have a level of English which enable them to complete their course in chemistry, biology, mathematics, etc. So we provide a learning management system, and we're constantly adapting it and tweaking it. Students can access this on their mobile, on their iPad, and through traditional laptops and devices like that. So we think that actually what we need to do is get closer to the teachers and really understand what's driving the demand in the classroom. And by doing that, actually also understand the users. And I think that's the next development for us, and I think Pearson are obviously working along similar lines as well, is how do we understand what the user's experience is? Not just the teachers. What are the students getting out of this? How do they enjoy learning? And your example of Juan before was great, because how do we make Juan into a more confident, positive learner through his experiences in the classroom, through the content which we create? And I think just to sort of finish off, we see ourselves as part of an ecosystem. We can't necessarily create the technology, the platform, the device, the route in to the school, etc. But what we can do is we can create the content, and we can work with partners in the industry, which is why it's so great walking the halls here and seeing all the innovation. So going back to what I said at the beginning, we are the world's sort of oldest startup, but we can't do it all on our own. And I think that's really what the value of being here today is talking to people who each have a part to play in this ecosystem. And I think the publishers can learn a lot from everybody. And we can't just publish in an analog fashion. There you go, everyone around the world can use this. How can we make this a personalized experience, and how can we learn from everyone in the room?
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'm going to break order a little bit because I won't have two publishers talking next to each other. There's nothing personal, guys. I'm going to go to Carlos because there was a conversation there, or a starting of a conversation about differentiation, flipped classrooms, etc. So can and will mobile education ever deliver these type of concepts, flipped classroom or truly personalized learning experiences?
Well, I think this is happening right now, okay? The point here is which is the role of the school and which is the role of the producers. And when I'm talking about the role, I talk about the job of designing the activity. Is our job or is your job? That's a question, okay? For me, it's, I will make an analogy. I think, I don't know if you like Lego. Yeah?
Love it.
Okay, you have Lego, and Lego gives you buy something, they give you some pieces and a plan to do something standard, okay? But if you are an advanced user, you can mix the pieces and you can make your own home. So for me, the home is the design of the activity with the, what do we have right now? We have finished houses, okay? Or atomized pieces with no standards of interconnection. I don't know if the analogy is good, okay? But I think the real creativity on education relies on the design of the activities and how you order these activities with your kids, how you build your strategy. Tomorrow I will make maths, I have to do this, I will use this. This will give us the answer regarding our performance, okay? So we need to find a model where for advanced schools, whatever, I mean, we can have the pieces and we can more or less change the design. But for schools which maybe are before whatever, they have the chance to have the pieces and you have a plan. And we need standards. I mean, we have lots of things, but I think they are too much disagreed. And today, it is changing right now in the schools. We have started the project 2 years ago, and the cultural organization of our school has changed completely. The way the kids move, the way the kids act, the way the kids does homework, everything has changed, okay? And we had a very great model. We can talk about during the conversation.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a chance to explore that change process a little bit further. Carry on.
Yeah, the first thing, for instance, is that we have the opportunity to record everything we're doing in the school. So this is something technical, it's not ideological. Yesterday I was talking with her, we need to get out of the ideology, and we need to talk, have technician conversations. I mean, we know a lot of psychology, anthropology, sociology, so we know how kids learn today. So this is not a matter of discussion. For instance, we know that one factor of learning is the metacognition, so that the kids just can be able to understand why they are doing things, they can record all the process of learning, and after that they can have a discussion on what has happened. Okay. The mobility, the iPads, is giving an amazing chance for us. So even if you're in the laboratory opening a fish or whatever things which I don't know, you know, you can take pictures, you can order all that. You can order the process. If you're building a robot with Lego, you can order the process. The process is really important, and we know that. So this is one example of something that has significantly changed in our school, for instance.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm not sure whether it's the intersection with school systems or with Lego, but I'm going to go to Henry. And I'm going to ask you, Henry.
I'll take it as a compliment.
You're currently focusing on Pearson's opportunity in vocational
Yeah.
education. As our world and the world of work become more knowledge-based, how must education systems adapt to be relevant?
Well, it's kind of adapt or die, really, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty dramatic, I think, the precipice that we're on. I mean, education is going to have to change. It's going to have to change dramatically. Education hasn't had its Napster moment. It hasn't had that big precipice, that big dramatic change that we've seen in other industries, but it's coming. I mean, I have a very thinly veiled ulterior motive for today, which is to say to telcos, to operators and to handset manufacturers, you know, come and talk to the education sector. I mean, we're probably not talking your language at the moment. We're probably talking across each other, but together we can do some kind of cool things. I mean, I don't come from a corporate background, actually. I come from a startup, and we see things in kind of black and white ways. We see them as kind of problems and solutions, and if the market size is big enough, then hey, let's go for it. And you know what, in education, we have problems. We have quite a few problems, some of which you've heard about today. I mean, if you look across all the different ages that education encompasses, you look at vocational, which is where I'm focused at the moment, you know, we've got to retrain constantly an entire workforce. We need a workforce that's going to be adaptable, that's going to be flexible. And you know what? 800 slides of PowerPoint ain't going to do that in terms of moving people forwards. We've got a big challenge there. We've got big challenges in terms of higher education as well. In the UK, the average student debt for the 2012 cohort was £53,000. Yeah, that's bonkers, especially when you've got average graduate starting salary of 21,000 and 9% graduate unemployment. I don't know about you, I mean, my maths is pretty bad, but that equation doesn't stack up terribly well for me. So we've got a problem there. And we've got a bigger problem as well in what's called K-12 education, you know, schools education. In the UK, we have 100,000 kids that are not in school right now. 100,000 kids. We have 100 million kids across the world who've never been in school. And this is a very big old problem. And actually, those that are in school, and this is not a Pearson line, by the way, but I think for many of these children, we're not serving their needs. We're not creating the citizens that we need for the 21st century, and that's a big old problem. So then, if those are kind of an overview of the problems, well, what are the solutions, and is the market size big enough? Well, the market size is definitely big enough. You know, the education industry is worth $5 trillion at the moment, and that's due to rise to, depending on whose numbers you believe, and I'm always skeptical about these, but between 6.8 and 7.9 trillion by 2017. That's a pretty big market. Just to put that into perspective, the global arms industry is worth 2.1 trillion. Okay, so this is a big old market, and they are desperate to give you their cash right now. I mean, we need some big transformation to come and join that. So what are the answers to this? Well, I think Pearson, we like to think we know some of the answers, but we certainly don't know all of them. So as I came up on stage here, I flicked my phone onto, I know you probably all got similar-ish phones. I've got a little thing here. This is the aircraft mode, okay? And what that does is it makes my phone suitable to use on an aircraft. I want a classroom mode. I want you to build me a classroom mode that I can use in schools. Yeah, I've seen pilots and all that. Build me a classroom mode. I also want you to solve the problem of the 100 million learners that don't have access to education. And you can do it. The connectivity is there. You can do it, and the phones are going to be affordable enough. We just need to get the right content. We need to get the right access to teachers. We need to use some amazing pedagogies that we're seeing left, right, and centre. We need to work together, and we can solve that problem. Wouldn't that be mind-blowingly cool if we could do that in this generation, if we could solve that problem? So come and talk to me afterwards, and we'll see if we can figure it out.
That's an offer. And I must admit, I hadn't expected to sit here with an education panel and talk about transformation, disruption, and innovation, so I'm absolutely thrilled.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I know. Ante, coming to you. The British Council has achieved geographical scale in many of its programmes. I just want to know, I was curious as to whether mobile learning featured in your coming plans.
Well, it features a lot. I think to start from what we currently have, in terms of face-to-face reach, through our teaching centres, we are reaching hundreds of thousands of learners across the world. Of course, we want to grow and we want to reach more people. But the only way to do that, is to do it mobile and get on digital. So, looking at, for example, the traffic, you have to be realistic and you have to start somewhere. So you look at, for example, our Learn English website, which has a huge amount of traffic to it. It's millions of people every month visiting that website. We have to make sure that all the stuff we have there, which is currently, most of it is free stuff, it's available and it's available to be used on all kinds of devices. So we have to work very hard to make sure we keep it updated, we keep it compatible with different devices that can access it. Of course, in addition, when we develop new materials and when we update old materials, we have to make sure that they go tablet first to understand what kinds of devices, what kinds of technologies people are currently using. But we're also conscious of the fact that this sector is happening. Everything's happening very, very fast. And I'm a fairly young member of staff, so I can probably make a credible case for we being very quick at our feet. But I'm sure if you look at the evidence, I don't think any of our organizations are particularly quick at our feet. So the only way to really keep up with the innovation and with the latest things and with really these amazing things that are now coming through. I completely agree with Adrian about the tipping point. You look at Duolingos and some other applications that all of us are studying very hard, I'm sure, because they're amazing. They're reaching huge amounts of people, and I think they are giving some sort of value to these people. Probably very informal education value, but value nevertheless. So the only way to keep up with that speed is to partner. And we have had some really, really great success stories already with few of handset manufacturers and with few teleoperators. And I think this is exactly the way we have to move forward. We are very, very conscious, just like the other two gentlemen said, we can't do it alone. And I think we are trying to learn each other's languages. That was a very good point as well. So that is the only way to really increase our numbers, increase the impact, build on the capacity we have and the really, really good quality and content and not compromise on that, but really find the right partnerships to go bigger and go quickly. That's what we want to do, but we can't do it alone.
Fantastic, thanks very much. Really interesting start to the panel discussion. I'm quite keen to hear from the audience because it's...
They're running away.
They're running away. We've focused really at this stage on the demand, the potential, and some of the critical ingredients for solving some of these almost intractable problems, it seems sometimes. But I wonder if there are any questions at this stage for the audience, for any of our panel members. Yes, sir. There's one right at the back, and then I'll come to you, sir.
Who's actually come closest? Who's actually come closest to actually linking the two ends together, as in educational material producers, app producers, and children?
If you'd like to have a stab at that, Leslie.
Well, that's a hard-loaded question to answer. So, who's come closest to put the resources with the children? Let me say that what I'm hearing partly as one of the major themes of this panel is the idea of partnerships and working together. People that are in private industry, people who are in public. I mean, every one of us in one way or another have addressed that. And I think that that is something that's also different. I mean, educators used to focus on, we know what it means to be a good educator, we know what we need to do in the classroom, this is our profession, leave us be. Industry folks, boy, they're just out for money. And that's what I loved about Tim's intro, actually, is because part of what makes a really good partnership work is understanding what everybody needs and working together to make something great happen. There are lots of really good partnerships out there now and people working together that are putting the needs of the children together with commercial interests and finding ways to do it. I am hesitant to name a particular example. I don't know if one of the other panelists are well, wait a minute, you guys, Cambridge and Pearson, might want to answer that one. But what I will say is that another game changer, I think, is this whole concept of multilateral partnerships and the idea of going into partnerships with transparency and equity as part of the core. So we're transparent about what we're in it to do, what we're trying to accomplish, what our needs are as organizations, and then say, because we're trying to solve something that we need all of us to work together to be able to do. We need all the brains together to make this happen. And that is really, really, I think, why all of us are here in one way or another. It's a different thing.
Absolutely, Jan.
Yeah, can I come in on that question? I mean, just to give you a few examples, we did a partnership with Nokia, for example, and we were offering an English language service in 20 countries in developing markets. And within about 6 months, we reached 1 million users. Now, I don't know whether all of them were children. In fact, actually, in some of the studies, we found out that lots of members of the family were using the phone to actually learn English. And our course was designed in such a way that you could be on a different level learner and you could still get something out of it. So in terms of, I mean, we were very focused on scale in that particular experiment. So I don't have a huge amount of qualitative data on that. But the other things that I'm sure probably all of us have experimented with is SMS services and things like that. And what is very crucial about these things is that they are little drops in the ocean, and I completely agree with my colleague here from Spain that you need you need a different level solutions. But I think again we are at that stage when we are doing experiments and we're trying to find out what works and what doesn't work, and getting a lot of feedback from the users as well. And of course, it's also about personalization and about finding and targeting the right groups of people.
So I'm assuming you're talking about telcos and content, that particular mix, specifically telcos. I think it's probably deeply uncool to blow Pearson's own trumpet on this, so I won't talk about all the amazing programs that we do. But some of the other cool things that I've seen, so the BBC Janla program, Bangladesh, weren't you guys involved in? Yeah, that's really cool. And actually definitely worth having a look at the stuff that Telefonica is doing. I hear that is brilliant as well. But Pearson stuff's amazing.
Did you want to pitch in?
I think that right now you're producing content and we are using it. My point is that we need to be more efficient in this relation. For instance, you've been talking about informal training, okay? Informal training is great, but the methodology is that the start is the motivation of the student. Yes. That's a bad hypothesis in the school. Yeah. But we are using, as school teachers, a lot of material regarding informal training. In fact, flipped classrooms, for instance. I mean, the name flipped. We did something similar before. It's just to put the added value in the right place. I mean, once there has been initiatives as TED Talks, some universities opening courses, lessons from. I mean, I can do it better than them. So listen, this during the afternoon, I will give you my value in the morning. So that's something really natural. It's a way of using something out of the initial plan completely out. So we're doing things, but I think we could be more efficient.
Rupert, you have something to add?
Yeah, I can definitely add to that, because I think we talked earlier about analog and digital. The great thing about digital is you can quickly revise and change content. And what we're looking at Cambridge in particular is the huge volumes of data we're getting back from our users. So I mentioned the university in Turkey. You know, we've got at any time 400,000 or 500,000 users all going through a course which we designed and developed with the university. There are areas of that course which are not working. Yeah, we know that, and students aren't participating, they're not completing the levels. So what do? We go back, we redesign it, and we're building this enormous database called the Cambridge Learner Corpus, which feeds in information from social media, from our courses, from Cambridge English Language Assessment examinations. So we can actually target, and we know the common mistakes that a user will make who's a Spanish native speaker who's learning English in Spain versus a Spanish native speaker who's learning English in Colombia. So we're able to tweak country by country, territory by territory, the actual output of the course, and then during the course itself, constantly monitor. And this is the value of data, and this is the value of digital, and this is the value of mobile. So we're investing a lot in these sort of value-added services which top up and tweak, and then in consultation with educators and teachers in the classroom and feedback from traditional market research, put all these things together. And I think that probably answer to your question, who's got it right, what's the best? No one's got it right. None of us can say we've got it right yet. I think we're working to find the best way through this. And it's always a series of developments and evolutions. And probably we'll never ever get it 100% right, but we're getting much, much better using data at tweaking course design and looking at the user experience and saying, okay, what do kids in primary school really want to be doing, and how can that help the teachers? How can our data evolve the courses on a dynamic and quick level?
Fantastic. You mentioned adaptive learning earlier, and I'm sure we'll all chase you on that after the session. I had one slightly further this one. Please.
Thanks for the panel. Nice panel. I have one question to the panel. The London Knowledge Lab did a paper 1 year ago, and it says that despite 15 years of research of impact of mobile learning, the mobile learning impact has not been significant. So my point is, we have a very important devices, the mobile devices. And my point is, are we using these mobile devices in the best of mobile education? And I don't think so, because this potential is huge. I mean, we have what we call the graphical context. Are we using this graphical context mobile education? No. We have all these features of the touch screen features. Are we using these? I am not sure, especially when we are talking about the deep-rooted education. Can we improve our way to learn mathematical relationships? Can we improve mathematical education through these mobile devices? I know that we can do that. We have the experience. I mean, when we use these mobile technologies in a sum with brackets, you know, it's so easy to understand the students the use of the graphical context instead of the brackets, that it's just great. I mean, so my point is that we need to go far away, and we need to set up a set of standards, new standards for mobile technology in order to improve this mobile education. I understand that it's going to be very hard, so we will need, as you, Adrian, mentioned in the IT World Conference just a few days ago, we will need some leadership. And I understand that GSMA might be one of the best entity to do this leadership. Thank you.
I'm going to pick up on that briefly. Leslie, would you like to
I
comment?
would, just to say that those things are happening. There are wonderful examples of people using touch screens to teach. I mean, concepts of force and all kinds of things with feedback. The reason that it hasn't taken off, and really the reason it isn't everywhere, I go back to saying it's about every student having access to a device that's a personal device. We haven't been able to afford that before in the developed world or the developing world. So it's that issue, and it's also connectivity. That we just haven't been able to afford it. And schools have believed, at least in the US, that they needed to own the device and maintain the device. What I believe is the thing that's the disruptive innovation, or that's the tipping point, is having personal devices that is a device that belongs to the individual that they bring to school, and then applications that can work on it. And I would love to have a little argument with Henry over here. I would not put an education mode on it. It's a device that's the same device their parents use. But anyway, I think that is what's different, and we've talked about it and dreamed about it, but it's possible now, and it wasn't before. That, I think you'll see the change starting to happen.
Sure, I think we would absolutely take that on board. There was a question right at the back there, please, and then this gentleman here.
Good morning, everybody. I represent a company called OnMobile Global Limited, which is a large value-added services player and working with various telecom operators across the world. So I represent the technology side. It's pretty interesting and exciting to be listening to the wonderful comments by the eminent panelists. I just wanted to make a couple of points. One is the fact that we're talking about great smart applications, use of data, but a fundamental fact remains that in most of the developing nations, we still have at least about 60 to 70% of the subscriber base, telecom subscriber base, who do not have access to data, who do not have access to smartphones. Fundamentally, we're talking about basic literacy skills, which means that they cannot use SMS, they cannot read SMSs. There are some states in the country of India where the penetration of SMS or the use of SMS is as low as 5%. So in such a world, I mean, to be able to improve basic literacy skills, we're talking about, we have a step behind, which is about digital literacy skills, right? And to be able to get people up to scale and to be able to use these wonderful technologies that we have, I think there is an emphasis on the use of voice as a medium to be able to teach, to be able to bring these people up to scale, to be able to bring these people to be able to even use the mobile phone, to be able to read SMSs, to be able to be comfortable with technology and as such. And that is when we can even hope to bring them to the next stage of using smart apps, smartphones and data and all these kind of wonderful evolved technologies. I understand that evolved technologies, like evolved learning can be a play where smart apps and the data can be used, but I think the first point starts at using even the basic voice as a medium. And I think BBC Janala was one of the good examples that was referred. We in fact are working with BBC Media Action in one of the mHealth projects, but I just wanted to emphasize the point that voice is something that is required, especially in this in the developing nations. Yeah, thank you. Any comments? And I'd be glad to, I'd be very happy to learn from the eminent panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well made. Points well made. Anyone like to comment briefly?
Yeah, why not? So there was kind of 3 bits in there. I'm just going to do it really, really quickly. First of all, devices. The move between, sorry, I'm peaking and troughing here. Move between feature phones and smartphones. As I understand it, in the first half of 2013, more smartphones were sold than feature phones across the world. I think that's right. I think roughly, certainly in sub-Saharan Africa, it's like an 80-20 split between feature and smartphones. Correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. I think we know the direction of travel for this, and I think that's going to be less and less of a problem moving forward, I think, but there are probably more experts in the room who can say more on that. I think in terms of connectivity, look, we've heard loads of big announcements just during this week alone, internet.org. I think the connectivity is coming because the business case is increasingly there to be able to do it. I think your point around literacy is also particularly interesting. There are a number of different ways in which we can solve this, and some of my esteemed colleagues can maybe talk a bit more about that. But your point about using voice directly, I think, is really good. BBC Janla has worked remarkably well, and there's more stuff that we can do on that.
Just give a device like this to a 2-year-old and tell me that you have to be literate in order to use a smartphone. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think that's not the case. I think that if you give a device to a child who doesn't read, they can figure out how to work the device, they can figure out how to play a game, they can do incredible things. Voice is incredibly important, so I don't mean to discount your point, but I don't believe that a person has to have voice access before they can learn to use a device like this. In fact, I just know it's not true because I've seen it so many times. It's a matter of using graphics, it's a matter of how well the interface is designed, excuse me. And I'll leave it at that, except for to say that we've got to think differently about what's possible. And just I have to say, Adrian, I think it would be really interesting if we'd had a young person younger than us, a younger person on this panel who's actually in the school system today talking to us about what's possible and talking to you about what's possible using mobile technologies for teaching and learning, because I think that voice would be really valuable on this panel, and I'm thinking they would maybe shake us up a little bit.
Absolutely sure they would. Thank you very much. Thank you for the points. They're well taken. Also set up our next speaker beautifully, so give us 5-10 minutes or so and we'll introduce you to something you should really go and examine further. Please.
Hello. I'm a father of 3 children. My experience is that I believe all the e-learning that is happening now, or at least seeing what is happening with my kids, that I want to introduce them not only to use tablets and stuff, but to see what is the information that I have on these devices. I'm experiencing that it's basically focused on languages, regular maths, science, and from my experience, I did some self-esteem workshops in South America and also in the States with kids that they were from the streets and stuff like that. And I'm really moved to see what is happening, or what is the future in terms of that education that is not entering in the regular school system, that I think is very valuable. And I would like to know what is from now in 4 years, what's different communities and what people are doing to create, let's say, ideal scenes map for kids, a guided meditation for small children. Sometimes I find for example, I find my kids going to the bath and just having a relaxed moment, and I just play music. I say, choose the instruments you want, and then they choose. And there's an app that just they want to play violin, or they want to play the sounds of water. And I think those are very, very powerful tools, and I don't see them happening in this, new world. And so I would like to know, just to learn a little bit more about what's happening now, and how is the relationship with the school systems and here in Spain and also around the world, being open to introduce this kind of learning in the normal system.
I think this is happening right now. The problem is, yesterday in school we were testing a new application. Okay, I think that right now there's more than 70,000 applications related to education. What that application did, something really easy. I mean, we're talking about physics, kinematics, okay, and you can just throw a ball, record the video, and the application puts an axis on it. That's it, okay? So you have a laboratory in here, and at least all of the kids, not only the 5 clever kids, can understand what a parabolic movement means, because you see all graphically. What is the problem? We have 70,000 applications completely disconnected. This application for physics teachers means a work of 4, 5, 6, 10 hours with their kids, and he's teaching 700 hours a year. So he needs to integrate lots of applications, and there's no link between them, and that's the problem. We are doing it because this is our job, and we know that kids learn better this way, but we need some kind of integration, some kind of general plan. These physics teachers need to have something, and doesn't need to stay looking for application at night, what I'm going to do tomorrow, and that's it. So the problem is the amazing ecosystem which is not ordered and so on. But this is happening, and that will happen for sure. It's happening in a few schools right now in Spain, but I'm in contact with lots of schools that are starting mobility projects in our country, and this is growing exponentially, okay? So I think this is going to happen in the following 3-4 years, I hope, for sure.
That's fantastic. I'm going to thank my panel. We're out of time at the moment. We're going to move on to our next set of speakers. But again, I'd really encourage you to consider continuing this conversation after the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
may need some help exchanging mics at some stage. Please, absolutely, whatever. Take it with you. Our third speakers this morning are going to speak as a pair. And they are part of a unique partnership between 3 mobile network operators and 2 departments of government to deliver mobile education solutions to out-of-school youth in the Philippines. If you could please welcome Yolanda Cristo of Globe Telecom and Stephanie Orlino of Smart Communications. Thank you.
Not yet. Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, thank you. My name is Yoli Crisanto, okay, and I am the head of corporate communications for Globe Telecom. We are an MNO operating in the Philippines, and the other speaker here is Stephanie, which we will call on later. She is also another MNO in the Philippines. The Philippines is one of those unique countries where there are only 2 mobile operators. All right. So I just want to, since we were not allowed to do a video, I would like to say that we do have a booth right now at the Mobile World Congress at Connected Living, and we are showcasing our mobile education programs, projects, both projects from Globe and Smart Communications are already running, and they're not in their pilot stages. So if you will have the time, can you please visit the booth? We are at Hall 3, again at Connected Living. Anyway, since I have only very little time, I would just like to share from my own point of view what are the things that we are doing on the education side. Learning from the Mobile Learning Week at the UNESCO last week. And it's a good thing that I see some familiar faces of those people in the audiences who've been there as well. I do realize that we have the same problems: lack of classrooms, lack of teachers, lack of access, content, etc. And even coming from an emerging market like the Philippines, one of the key learnings I had is that even if you are in the developed countries, you still do face the same problems. Now, as a mobile network operator, what have we done so far in the area of education? We have several partnerships, like what our panelists have been talking about. We are running, let's say, a partnership with Nokia and Pearson Foundation for Text to Teach, which has been there for about 10 years now. We have intervention programs even for teachers, which we call the Global Filipino Teacher Program. We even build schools. We build schools, we help build classrooms. We have a Global Filipino School, which is running on ICT, of course. We do intervention program for children with special needs like autism, again using ICT as a platform. And last year, we entered another partnership with the GSMA to do intervention work for out-of-school youths, which you will see in the booths where we have at Connected Living. This partnership actually gave us an opportunity to showcase even our own venture capital company, which we call Kickstart Ventures. So we fund a startup to help us do this program for the out-of-school youths. Adrian was talking about provocative thinking. And here's some provocation on my part. While we all agree that the market potential for education is great, as an MNO, all our education programs are still running on a CSR standpoint. And it's not yet commercialized. Okay? There's also a need for us, especially in our country, to be able to influence policy decisions, especially with the government. Why? I know that you know that the Philippines has been rated as the tech capital of the world. And the market penetration rate in our country is over 100% because of multiple SIMs. In UNESCO, I've been asked this question. With all of the mobile phones out there, what is stopping you from mainstreaming or doing a lot of things in terms of education? Because access is already there. Here's the answer. Even if each child has a mobile phone or using a feature phone of some kind, or a smartphone even, cell phones are banned in schools. And finally, I think there is also a need, learning from the panelists and hearing from them, I think there's a need to unify our standards in such a way that we can also democratize content. Stephanie?
Thanks, Yoli. Short. Okay. All right. Thanks, Yoli. Forgive my voice. I've lost it talking to all the people at the booth. Anyways, I'm Stephanie. I'm from Smart Communications. Again, it's one of the mobile network operators in the country. And my role is to tell you about the collaboration that we are doing together. Before I do that, I'd like to say that what we're doing is actually technology in the context of development. And that the Philippines is an archipelago made up of more than 7,100 islands. And most of these islands are physically, literally separated by water or mountains. And that we have a population of more than 97 million, 30 million of which belong to the youth sector. And out of the 30 million, more than 6 million are out of school. We also have a smartphone penetration rate of around 20%, but it's rapidly growing. And we are largely a prepaid market, meaning actually Smart Communications has built its business on a sachet pricing model, which means that although subscribers do have a few amount to spend on products and services, they'll be able to get that. For example, if they do have a peso, they can still send a text message, they can listen to music, and they can even, access a learning module. Now, what we're doing late last year, so we worked with Globe Telecom, the GSMA, and the government institutions in the country in education, such as the Department of Education, the Technology, Technical Vocational Administration in the Philippines, and even the National Youth Commission, to collaborate on bringing education to 1 million out-of-school youth in the country in 2014. Now, upon consultation with the government partners, basically they told us that the parameters we're working at are that these learners, these out-of-school learners, would have access mostly to feature phones, to voice, and to SMS. And so those were the parameters we're working on, which means that the mobile network operators have to develop services that run on feature phones and that run on voice and 2G. Although we do have 4G services in the country, of course, and that the price points of smartphones are getting lower, these still have to be, the infrastructure still has to move from the city towards the rural areas. And there has to be more lower priced phones so that these learners can have access to that. And so basically the role of the MNOs is to develop mobile education services that can help the government reach its goal faster. So what did we do? For our part, actually both of us, we've developed an interactive voice response system. So that's actually what the gentleman earlier said. We are maximizing voice services. On our end, we are working on basic education for out-of-school youth. So basically, the learners are able to dial in a number, and they are able to listen to their learning modules over the phone using any feature phone, anytime or anywhere they are. And for the teachers, we've actually developed a simple mobile application that allows them to track the progress of their learners. They can send them an SMS alert. They can do, for example, a conference call that does not run on data, that runs on voice, because physically, you know, these learners and teachers live far apart and they have to travel long distances in order to meet together. And so we've set up sort of like a virtual classroom that allows the teachers to extend their reach, and it allows the students to, you know, it actually democratizes access to the content. At the end of the year, at the end of the school year, whether the students have access to their learning modules via the IVR or via a face-to-face meeting, they can go to the Department of Education, take an equivalency exam, and if they pass that, they can get their diploma for elementary or secondary. This way, they're reintegrated into the system, whether they want to go to college, to high school, to college, or maybe, you know, get better jobs for themselves. Globe has actually developed a similar service. It's an IVR service that leads towards employment. The Philippines has a huge contact center industry. It's providing a lot of livelihood for Filipinos. I'm sure some of you, you know, have tried calling assistance, and, you know, most probably the person on the other line is coming from the Philippines. And to be able to enter that industry, you need to know how to learn, how to speak English fluently. And so they've developed actually an IVR service that trains you on how to speak English properly, and that leads to employment. So basically this collaboration for us, it makes sense. It's a win-win situation all around because the government, they're able to reach their target. In fact, maybe even faster and wider because of the technology involved. And for us, while Yoli said that this is advocacy, we are already trying to integrate it into our commercial services because it's going to be part of our DNA as a company. I mean, the company itself is a service. We're targeting the base of the pyramid in the Philippines. And so we actually are going to get paid by the government for the access of the students to the service. So for us, it's commercial, it's advocacy, and then the government is able to reach their target faster. So, thank you.
If I could ask my next panel to join me on the stage, please. Carolina, Angela, Tim. That would be fantastic. The idea of this panel is to some extent, give the industry a right to reply and to show us how much they know about the education sector. So let's start with something new and modern. Carolina. Well, let's introduce yourself first, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Zhu. I'm the responsible of Telefonica Learning Services, which is the mobile education and mobile learning company of Telefonica Group. So we've been trying to evangelize around e-learning and mobile education for the last 15 years, more or less.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think you introduced me, but Tim Unwin, for those who've come in late, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization.
Hi, I'm Angela Baker. I work for Qualcomm Wireless Reach, and Wireless Reach is a strategic program within Qualcomm that looks at how wireless technologies can have a positive economic and social impact around the globe, and I oversee the mobile education portfolio.
Fantastic. While you're on your feet, let me ask you a question first.
Perfect.
Angela, why should M-learning look beyond classrooms to larger opportunities for lifelong learning?
I like how you mixed it up and switched it over to me.
You see,
So I think the last panel did a good job of talking about a sort of partnerships and in the classroom, and we got lots of rich discussion out of that. And one of the things at Qualcomm that we're looking at is sort of this 360 life-wide learning. So we know that learning doesn't just happen in the classroom, right? I search for things all the time when I'm not at work. And you know, people, I forget who it was on the panel, but they talked about sort of 24/7, or maybe Tim, it was you in your opening remarks. Qualcomm is really focused on affordable, 24/7, always on, always learning. And so we have a number of technologies that we've developed in addition to, you know, using 3G technologies to augment what kids are learning in the classroom or to supplement, because they're not just learning from 8 to 4 anymore. And it's not just kids that are learning. We have to work with teachers on professional development, because we can't just input mobile into the classroom and not prepare them. We have to get administrators on board and ministries of education on board as well. So just for one project that I'll tease out is a project that we're doing that uses augmented reality. So kids are in the classroom learning about the Silk Road, which is the ancient road from China to the Middle East and down to the India subcontinent. And kids are learning about it in the classroom. They're in there with their textbooks. But then they go to the museum once a week, and they take out their smartphones, and an augmented reality, if you're not familiar, is taking a digital overlay on existing content or an existing image. So it pulls information off the screen at you. And it's interactive content. So the kids are learning about the Silk Road. This allows them to traverse the Silk Road. They can play videos. They answer interactive questions. Videos, I think, can go to the point on the multimedia content for people that can't necessarily read, or maybe their English isn't there. So there's lots of ways to add in sort of these other components in education of multimedia content, augmented reality. We have a technology called AllJoin, which is peer-to-peer connectivity. And that allows teachers, tablets to talk to other tablets, to talk to other smartphones, to talk to smartboards. So really making the learning a much more personalized experience, allowing kids to learn in and out of the classroom, on the bus, and when they're at home, so that we're not just focusing on that 8 to 4 time when they're in the classroom. Or maybe they don't have a classroom and they have to learn, just at home or whatever.
Fantastic, thank you. Keeping on the theme of technological innovation, I wanted to ask Carolina about MOOCs.
Oh.
Do you believe that MOOCs can really transform higher education?
I think it has already transformed higher education. I mean, it's an incredible revolution. When you see what's happening with Coursera, that was the first project, but now if you see in Europe, there are 4 or 5 projects in each country being launched. We are doing one for Spain and Latin America. And you see how right now I've got 800 teachers of different universities, about 50 universities, creating the MOOCs and telling the impact it's having on their own reality, how developing that content, how having a classroom of 25,000 students is really an experience they've never lived before. And the truth is that there was an incredible report from UNESCO saying that if we wanted to fulfill the needs of higher education by 2020, we would have to build 3 universities of 40,000 students per week. So I mean, that's not going to be possible anyway. So really, that's really a clear example of democratization of knowledge. And if a student from any place in the world can have access to the best teachers all over the world, universities better think about it and start reinventing their business model, because or else they're going to have a big problem. So the feeling that I have, there are quite a lot of conferences that are happening all over the world around the MOOCs. You see that universities are worried, are interested, and are doing things. I mean, really, they're starting to do quite a lot of things. So I think it's going to be really an exciting world right now. Then will come, if it really has the credits behind it, what are the business models behind it, and all that is being right now invented. There are already quite a few business models, but the truth is what the universities are telling me is that they're seeing the revenues from other sides. For example, the visibility of their university, it's attracting clients, possible students, sorry. But they should see them as clients. They should see them as clients. They're reinventing the pedagogy. So really, they're already seeing the interest in it, even though maybe the online certifications are not going to bring loads of money on the short term. But it's really very exciting to be in this project anyway.
I mean, that's a rapid take-up of a modern technology. Tim, you and I know the world is littered with pilots. What are the...
That's not the plane crashes.
Not the plane crashes, but if we're going to move pilots to sustainable commercial offerings, well, where should we focus?
It's a tough question, and I mean, there isn't an easy answer. And maybe I've been thinking a lot about this. The 3 things I would point to. I know this is a tech panel, so I'll get, but I think schools are going to be around for a while. And therefore, we have to begin with the teachers. I mean, I'm appalled how, in my work, particularly in Africa, there are very, very few countries that have said, right, all teachers, we're going to give you an understanding of how to use technology appropriately. And that goes far beyond just a suite of particular software. So it's integrating. Someone said earlier, switch phones off in class. I mean, I teach occasionally, and it's switch the phones on. And so I think actually ensuring that all teachers have that, doing it at scale. So that would be one. I think secondly, it's actually stop thinking in terms of pilots. It's thinking conceptually at scale. Pilots fail
because people put a lot of money into them, or fail to be scaled up because people put a lot of money into them, particularly tech companies, particularly the CSR side, not the business side. And I think the example from the Philippines saying it's all in CSR, forgive me, I think that's unlikely to go to scale because it wasn't the business end of the company that was making it happen. So it's actually designing things to be at scale. It's thinking big. Say, right, we want to transform our education system. How are we going to do that? And I think thirdly, I've had some interesting discussions here where people are beginning to say, okay, we'll give every kid a $25 smartphone. Actually, that's not that expensive to do. And that would just change the world.
No, absolutely. So, and change is an interesting area to finish on because all of you have mentioned teachers. Teachers benefiting from large amounts of data, seeing a revolution in the university.
And it's the techies mentioning the teachers.
And techies mentioning the teachers, which is a real significant shift.
Well, I think one thing we talked about, I think last week at Mobile Learning Week was that, and I heard it a lot on the first panel, was disruptive technologies. And I think we have to stop looking at them as disruptive technologies. Because if you frame it that way, it sounds negative. And if you throw technology into the classroom and you don't do any prep, it will be disruptive, right? So you have to work on the front end, and it's really a change model. I mean, you really have to work with teachers, and we've done a couple of projects, pilots. I don't know if it's a bad word now at Qualcomm on this, but you have to work with teachers, and it's hard. And my mother's a teacher, so a big fan of teachers. But you have to work with them. They can't just do what they were doing before, but with technology. And so you have to really work. That's why I was talking about the 360 model. You have to work with the administration or the governments. The Kenyan government right now is not allowing smartphones in the classroom. We have a project there that uses tablets in the classroom, but it's a mentality change. And so if you get something new at your job and you just try to do work the same way you've been doing it, it's not going to be effective. So I think you really have to, but it's not necessarily disruptive. It's just a change model.
And around training the teachers, we're training about 150,000 teachers per year on didactic ICT, not how to use technology that they know. It's how are you going to explain better maths? Why is the math experience of your kids going to be more interesting? Because you're using this app. And as the other panelist was saying, is making it easy for the teachers. Our experience, well, actually sometimes the crisis is useful. For example, in Spain, there were big training programs where we were face-to-face, and it was very difficult to move the teachers. And thanks to the crisis, the budgets were absolutely reduced by 1/10, and they had to move. There was a whole group of Castilla-La Mancha, an area of Spain, that has 35,000 teachers, and had to move from face-to-face training to completely online learning for their own progression in the school. And they had to really face the reality of using technology for their own learning. Once you're able to make them fall in love with this, they become the best ambassadors in the world. So when they sometimes say, no, you need new young teachers, not at all. I've got 60-year-old teachers that are incredible teaching using tablets. So it's really making them feel confident, losing the fright that they have that the young kids in front of them are going to know much more than they do. And really making the learning process in the class much more thrilling. And I think once you get them, I mean, it's wonderful. So you have to make it big, as you say.
That's a critical point. There's some emerging data from Telecom Italia saying that the older teachers are actually better at introducing new concepts, including technology, because they've already got the classroom management, they know what they're doing, the confidence they can control the class. Therefore, they can introduce other things, which is fascinating. We all know leadership's important as well. So how difficult is it for an industry sector or a telco to talk to policymakers in education or leaders of school districts or schools?
You're looking at me. I don't see that as a problem at all. I mean, a lot of our work is bringing together people. We were talking about partnerships earlier in those ways, and if you can create the right atmosphere, and someone said earlier, tremendous importance of trust.
Yes.
And it's actually, you can do it. So you can bring, and I think we haven't mentioned the regulators here. I mean, they have a key role to play in this as well. You can definitely bring people of goodwill from the private sector, from governments, from regulators, from the educational context. I mean, we're a classic example of that in this discussion. So I don't see that as a problem. I mean, there are people who are out there for their own interests, who are selfish and greedy. Life is too short to work with them. You can work. There are so many great guys out there. Work with those of a like mind. And yeah, I've always said one of the things about ICT in education is it requires a huge set of different skills. And if you can assemble that right team, you can do fantastic things. And I know, certainly in the Commonwealth countries where I work, most governments are absolutely up for this. It's exciting, but partnerships aren't something that just happen. You have to work really, really hard at crafting them. I mean, Leslie talking about being aware of, 15 years ago we were working on this, and these partners are willing to contribute that, but their expectation is this. And it's knowing those contributions and expectations and stirring the pot and making it happen. But yeah, it needs charismatic leaders, it needs, but it's, the answer to your questions, it can be done. We need to get out and do it.
Do it carefully. And some of those principles for multi-stakeholder partnership, absolutely critical.
Thank you. And he didn't say public-private, so it's fantastic.
That's
I
because
mean,
they told me not to on Monday.
Yeah.
But I do think that the projects are helpful in that regard, right? So I'll just speak to the U.S. So we're lobbying the FCC to include in an E-rate program, which is a policy program that gives money for ICT in schools, but it doesn't have a mobile component to it right now. And obviously for Qualcomm, that's our business model. But also, if kids are only on the computers in the classroom and then they go home and they don't have access to the internet, is that really sustainable learning? So I think it helps to have data points and reports being done and projects so you can showcase, not just say, look, the government of South Korea has got a smart learning strategy and the government of Turkey has a smart learning strategy that includes mobile, but also these projects are working and kids' test scores are going up, or not even their test scores are going up. They're more engaged, they're asking more interactive questions or open-ended questions if it's science, whatever it is. I think it can be done, but I do think that these are good ways. It's good to have examples to showcase.
And can I just very briefly add, and we've got to have effective monitoring and evaluation there. Absolutely. There are so many projects going on, and A, there isn't any monitoring and evaluation. B, where there is, it's not shared widely, so we're reinventing the wheel. So, I think, I'm involved in the ITU's M-Learning working group, and one of our core recommendations is very much going to be to share understandings of what works and what doesn't, so we don't waste time.
Fantastic. I'm going to bring the audience in, see if they have any questions at this stage. Yes, please.
I have two. The first is whether you can speak to any. Thank you. Whether you could speak to any of the outcomes in terms of educational outcomes and employment outcomes of these mobile technologies. And the second is on the employer and sustainability side, whether you've actually engaged the private sector or the employers on the business side to invest in some of these because it's investing in their future workforce.
Learning outcomes.
Well, okay, on the first one, there is actually remarkably little monitoring and evaluation. I think that was just the point that we're making, and a lot of it is belief rather than hard reality. Having advocated it, though, it's very clear that you could actually prove almost anything you want to, depending on how you do the research, and we've done some surveys of the literature, and one of the latest reports that's come out is, and it's not mobile, but there's a report, which you know about the PISA scores, the OECD PISA, that actually PISA scores were lower for those who use computer in the classroom than the other way around. The authors of that report couch it in very carefully. It's good, but that is irrelevant. The fact that there is some research that can show that. So we really do need to understand what is going on. We need to move away from a lot of the hype. I mean, it's marketing. Of course, we market it. But I think critical things about mobile that we said is it's anywhere, anytime. It's personalised. It's actually generally quite small. You can take it with you. And why it's got to be internet connected is it puts the world's knowledge at the fingertips. So I think all of those intuitively are fundamentally important. But how? And it really depends what learning outcomes you want. I mean, is it to be able to regurgitate some poetry or to have some skills? And this, I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I would say, so we've done nearly 40 projects, Qualcomm Wireless Reach, that are education related. And some of the key findings that we've found are, one, we talked about preparing educators effectively, not just throwing the technology in the classroom. To Tim's point, having meaningful metrics and knowing what you're piloting for, or knowing what the project is about. So at Qualcomm, we actually have a really robust monitoring and evaluation program. We've spent the last 2 years sort of creating it, and we rolled it out within the last 6 months, and it's something now that we're using in all of our projects across all 5 issue verticals. But you can't just, it's on a case-by-case basis, right? So you have to know what your end goal is. So if your end goal is getting teachers ready, it matters if the kids' test scores go up, but you have to design the program and work with content that will get you to that end goal. And to leverage content that is mobile enabled, so it's not just a matter of uploading textbooks and having people read them on a tablet. It's working with the content providers to have interactive multimedia content, and either giving teachers the freedom to curate content that they can use, being flexible, or building content if it needs to be built, or working with the content providers for specifically what the project is about or what the whole school is focused on.
And nobody's mentioned games so far. I mean, and designing really good education. Trouble is that's really expensive to do well. But
Well, for the second questions, I think that if you talk about for corporate mobile learning, that's a reality that has been proven for many years. So there is clearly KPIs behind it and a ROI, and you don't have to prove it anymore. So right now it's more focused on what is the value for the K-12 market, in which maybe we're starting. But many of the large corporations we work with, 50% of the training programs that they do actually are already online. So the employers have no doubt about the value that it has for them. As far as if, for example, in the MOOC world, one example that we're having that is quite interesting in how it actually generates employability is that some of the programs that are developed mainly in coding, HTML5, Android, some of the universities don't have yet that type of programs. So what we're seeing is that companies are looking for people that do these MOOCs, have a certificate at the end, do some type of exam or whatever, and actually go and look for these skills because maybe they don't have a engineering degree, but they're very good at coding, and those are not so available skills right now. So for everything that has to do with new technologies, I find the industry is actually going directly to these models to find possible skills. So it can be interesting also.
Thanks for your question. I'd also encourage you to follow up with Carlos because he has some hard results, I believe, from your implementation. So it's be an interesting discussion. There you go. So the education sector can carry that. Thank you. Any other questions? I've got time for perhaps one more. Yes, sir.
Hi, Wayne Voda, FHI 360. Tim, you should know better than to say that doing mobile games is expensive. Actually, you can do mobile games really cheap. One of my favorites is the Snake game. All of you probably played it on your very, very first Nokia. Now, instead of eating the food, you eat letters in the order of a word, right? Simple spelling game. I guess this thing's working. So the real deal, though, the real deal is it isn't so much the expense of the game or even the hardware. It's the curriculum, it's the content, it's the pedagogy, it's retraining the teachers often so we teach differently versus just using teaching the same way with fancy tools. So have at it, kids.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great question. Anyone like to comment on that, or you? That's a
we agree 100%.
statement we agree with.
Was there a question? I didn't hear if there was a question.
No, there wasn't a question. Thanks very much. I'm going to draw a close and thank both of my panels, which has been a fantastic, lively discussion. We did brief these guys earlier yesterday, and I suspected there might be gaps between the two sectors, to be perfectly frank. And I think I've heard the education sector talking tech speak, and these guys talking about pedagogy and assessment, which is going on. So I think we've come a long way. I think it was continuing after UNESCO last week. The conversations are absolutely aligning. Let's hope the action does exactly the same thing. Thank you very much for attending the session.